podcast extravaganza, the one, the only, the best place to get your energy news. Ryan Ray alongside the good doctor herself, Dr. Ellen Wald. Dr. Wald, how are you doing today?
Things are very good here. It's been an interesting day for energy news though.
Yeah, we are getting into a interesting time. It feels like in the energy news space where you have the Biden administration, which we'll talk about in a minute. For watching the last 4 years, the media lambaste, is that the right word? The Trump administration for all of their gaffes. There's plenty of gaffes to well on the Biden administration, especially when it comes to energy policy. And so we will get to that in a second. But first, Dr. Wald, we talk about this all the time. Energy prices going up. They're hard to predict. Well, guess what? We now have a solution for you, a new sponsor to the podcast. And so it is I don't have the list of states in front of me, but it's a bunch of them. It's a bunch of them. All the Northeast, Florida, Texas, Midwest, West Coast. If you're looking to what's the word here? Rectify. No. How would you phrase this?
Mm.
Improve your energy,
Yes.
your monthly energy rates. Well, we can help you out, and so we will link to that in the show notes. And for those of you who are worried about rising gas prices, which you should, over the winter or electricity prices, be sure to check out our link in the show note and go get your rate looked at, examined, and see
Yeah.
if our folks can help you out. Okay, Dr. Wald.
I just want to reiterate one thing that this is a really important thing, and it's especially because not only do we know that energy prices are rising, but and we'll probably talk about this in a piece later, but even if you think you live in a place where energy costs aren't going to be so high, like I know I live in Florida and we don't really get to need a lot of heat in the in the winter, but the rising energy costs are going to affect everyone, no matter whether you live in an area that's really cold or not. So definitely, this is something that everyone should be concerned about and looking into.
Yep, we'll link to it in the show notes first link so you can check it out. Um, and yeah, listen, even in a place like Texas, remember what happened last year? So, even if you don't think it's going to get cold, it could get cold. Okay. Speaking of raising prices,
Ooh.
yeah, Saudi Aramco raises. I knew I missed a word there. Oil prices after OPEC Plus defies Biden.
Defies.
Defies him. They just thumb their nose at him.
Someone
Okay.
must be having a lot of fun writing these headlines.
Yes, yes, they are. Okay, so they are. Let's see here. This is the second paragraph. Aramco increased pricing for its key Arab light grade of crude Asian customers in December by $1.40 to $2.70. Dr. Wald.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a big. I mean, that is. I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I asked you. So, what's your read on this? Is this so? Because we kind of prefaced this with the Textile Gas podcast this morning. We had Jay Young on, and his theory was that as it gets closer to a dollar, not a dollar, $100, he expects the Saudis, OPEC, to start to try to level off level it off. They don't want to see spiking prices to the 120, 130. So, is this just a short term play by the Saudis? Do you agree with that thesis? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that this definitely reflects their general, sense of prices are rising. I really, I mean, I watched the whole OPEC press conference, and it was interesting. First of all, I wasn't really expecting there to be a press conference because the last meeting was like snip, snap, wham, bam, like it was over, no press conference, like shortest OPEC meeting ever. And everyone expected them to make the same, um, basically, confirm the same thing, which they did. But they did hold a press conference, and it was actually a really interesting kind of assembly. They had a bunch of different ministers, including the Mexican oil minister, who is like kind of like sort of tangentially to OPEC plus. She's also the only female oil minister, which is kind of nice. And she spoke. So first they had Alexander Novak, and he spoke in Russian. Then they had the Saudis. He always speaks in English. And then we had the Mexicans. She spoke in Spanish. So it was like a multilingual event going on here. But it was pretty interesting because they all basically came out with the same message, and that's not something we usually see from OPEC. We usually see like people message whatever they want, and basically the message was, be thankful that there is an OPEC and that OPEC is managing the market, because without it, you'd have like basically what we are seeing in the natural gas market now. Now, I'm not saying that argument is correct or anything, but that was like the message, and it included like a packet that was apparently sent to the reporters ahead of time and displayed on the telecast screen. So they were like, "Please turn to page 6," and had graphs and charts and also all sorts of historical documents. I mean, this was like they clearly came ready to make their case that not only is OPEC not necessarily responsible for higher prices, but they are doing a really good job managing the market, and the U.S. should be grateful, and everyone else should be grateful that OPEC is there to manage the market and prevent higher spikes. And that's an interesting argument, and we're going to have a guest on in a few weeks who basically argues that OPEC is totally ineffectual at at impacting prices. And so that will be interesting to consider. But I do think that this increase in prices is definitely reflected in the meeting. They don't see I think they don't see oil prices now as hindering demand. Now, there will come a time when it will hinder demand. I mean, the Biden administration is pushing this idea that they're hindering global growth. And that may be, except that I think OPEC doesn't see it like that, because they're still seeing really strong demand for their oil. So people are buying it at the prices that they're offering. When is the point where people will stop buying? I'm not, you know, I, it's I'm not sure that that's really their calculus here. In fact, they seem convinced that we're going to see more weakness in the market come 2022. So they believe that oil stocks are going to start to increase in 2022, and so I would say they're probably just taking advantage of what they can now, and they seem pretty convinced that this is not going to last that far into 2022, particularly as they unwind the rest of their cuts. So, um, you know, that seems to be their argument, or at least their thinking at this point.
So I'm kind of torn over some of that messaging there. So from OPEC's perspective, um, I fully get why they are coming out and saying you should thank us, you need us, because the Biden administration and the Trump administration both have called and asked a favor of them, the Saudis especially, on oil production. And so I get that messaging. Why not use it to your advantage? The question I have is, does it really matter? And so what I'm saying is, like, they're hyping themselves up, and if oil goes to 150, then everyone's gonna get mad at them, right? But if oil stays at 70, will people actually going around thanking OPEC that prices are at 70? So it's one of those things that it's I get why they're doing it, but will it have any long lasting impact um, outside of OPEC?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so, and I think that it's interesting, and we're going to talk about the Biden administration's messaging, because I do think that there's also a very concerted message that they're giving out, and so it's almost like the battle of the two, like, PR departments, who has better PR. And the truth is that the Biden administration has better reach than OPEC. Like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, there are a lot of like oil journalists and analysts who want to hang on Abdulaziz bin Salman's every word, and catch his every movie reference. But compare that to the number of people who like hear what Biden says at a press conference in the
Right.
White House. They're and OPEC is fighting an uphill battle in messaging, because they don't want to be called a cartel. That was like the first thing out of their mouth was like, we're not a cartel. But all the White House has to say is, this cartel is raising your prices, and Americans are like, "Arr." And OPEC
Right.
is everyone's favorite villain. The thing is, though, that the Biden administration's approval ratings are really low. And so people are going to blame him. They're going to blame OPEC, but they're like, OPEC is like, it's there. Like, what are you supposed to do about it? But the Biden administration, like, they feel like they should do something about it, or they can express their dissatisfaction with them in a much more um, effective way than you can, you know, say we hate OPEC. I mean, we're just supposed to like go burn an OPEC flag. Come on.
burn burn the OPEC flag in the streets.
Yeah, it's
I
like a
don't think
blue
anyone.
thing. You
Yeah.
can see
Oh
it.
yeah.
Well, they have it on the to OPEC, but not that you can like get into Vienna now because their COVID restrictions are like absolutely insane. But if you could like climb to the top of the building and like take the flag down and burn it.
Mm.
I'm not recommending that.
No, 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 we're not. It would just be funny to see a bunch of like angry protesters burning the OPEC flag.
Yeah.
That would just be an odd sight. Yeah, I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird because, well, so we got a story on Russia. Let's go ahead and talk about the Biden stuff, I guess, and
Yeah.
we'll come back to Russia. And so,
Yeah.
what do you think Biden is going to do about the strategic patrol SPR? The SPR. Do you think they're going to release, and will the release actually backfire? Because is it going to be enough to bring down prices longer than a couple weeks or whatever?
Yeah, that's like, I mean, that's a big issue. And it's interesting because they're so like, I mean, like everything, they're all over the place. First of all, like, did you see the clip from Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm? She was on the show Bloomberg Surveillance that I'm on fairly often, actually. Um, this is the same guy, the guy from there, Tom Keene. He's a really like smart, like savvy guy. He asks really good questions. And so he's, sitting there in his like bow tie and everything. He's talking to Jennifer Granholm. She's in Glasgow. She's wearing this bright green jacket, which is funny because someone commented that like, did she like win the Masters or something? Like that's what it was like. It was like green, but whatever. You're not supposed to comment on like what women wear to these events, are you?
I
Anyway,
I can't. I
you can.
can't.
I can.
Yes, I can.
Personally, I thought the bright green, like, hey, bring the bright colors. I'm all about the bright colors, but it was a little bit Masters esque. Um, I will say it's like a little
Hello,
brighter,
friends.
but yeah. Anyway, so she basically like he asked her this question. And she basically just started laughing
Mhm.
like, and, laughing, and it's like, don't laugh when people in the US are, like, suffering, like, these are high gasoline prices. Okay, maybe they're not quite as high as 2014, but, like, they're still high, and this is not, I mean, and everything else is going up too with inflation, so, like, he asked, like, "What effect do you think inflation is having on this?" And she just, like, laughed about it, and it was very disconcerting because inflation is an issue that affects energy prices even if it's not totally like measured in all the CPI stuff. So it came across as like really tone deaf. And I think that's one of the reasons why she was on the like morning shows trying to maybe correct this. Um, and they keep saying like, oh, we'll use every tool in our arsenal to bring down oil prices. Okay, so what are those tools? There's an SPR release, crude oil, probably not gas, but crude oil, right? Okay, so SPR release. There's a coordinated SPR release. So the United States is part of this like group
Mhm.
of OECD nations, and they all have to have a certain amount of oil in their SPR to be considered part of this group. It's all through the IEA. Everyone thinks the IEA is all about climate now, but originally it was basically supposed to be like the like consumer group for
Yeah.
like to be versus OPEC. So they could do that kind of release. That might have more of an effect than just a US SPR release. What listeners should take a look at? John Kemp from Reuters, he's a Reuters analyst. He had a really good thread on Twitter earlier today. I'll try to link to it in the show notes. I know I tweeted about it, where he kind of goes through like what are the market implications of an SPR release? How many barrels would it actually be? What would the impact be? And
Mhm.
really, it would basically be transitory,
Whoa, whoa, hold on. Transitory now means
not like
permanent.
inflation transitory.
Okay. Like,
Yeah, not that
actually
kind of
transitory.
transitory. I mean, like it would cause a brief, drop in
Yeah.
prices, but because there are so many other factors that are contributing to the rise in prices that aren't just supply, it would it would go back up. Plus, we've been doing SPR releases. Like when they passed that like continuing budget resolution back in like 2015, it contained like this set plan for SPR releases because they were they're like selling stuff from the SPR to make money for like the budget or whatever. So we have actually been doing this. So like this would be obviously an unplanned one. I mean, he makes a very good argument. I would definitely check that out. So I'm wondering, are they talking more about? I mean, okay, they could. Well, we don't have a federal gasoline tax; it's all state taxes, right? So, like, they could press states to say cut their gasoline taxes, which I don't think they'd have much luck in. Um, I know there's talk about like not allowing exports anymore. That would be a god awful, terrible, horrible idea.
See, I
I mean,
thought
I
we
can't
had
think of anything worse.
a federal gasoline tax. No,
I don't know.
yeah, I'm pretty sure
We
we
do?
raised. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Am I crazy? I might be crazy.
I don't know. I know. Well, I know they were either talking about instituting one or I guess raising
Raising it.
one.
They want to raise it.
Do we have a federal gas? We should probably things we should probably know.
Yeah, I think we do. I think there were.
I know New Jersey recently raised its gasoline tax, which
Yeah.
sucks for people who live like on the border with Pennsylvania because I used to go to New Jersey to buy gasoline because it was cheap. Here are okay, yeah, the United States has a federal excise tax on gasoline of
18
18.4
cents.
cents per
Yeah.
gallon and 24.4 per diesel fuel. So they could say suspend the gasoline tax and that would definitely lower prices across the board.
Yeah, and 24. Like I drive a diesel truck, so 24 cents would be a nice little bump. The but to your point, to make the joke about transitory, it would be though, right? So unless you had this SPR release and you also had a decrease in demand or some kind of external upswing in the supply,
Yeah.
it's not going to be long lasting, and that's the problem, and that kind of goes back to you talk about the tools and toolbox. This wouldn't fix the problem this year, but I keep saying that if the Biden administration encourages people to invest in oil and gas companies, encourages, lifts some of these permits, permits the pipelines, stuff like that, that would be the best thing they could do, because that would help drive prices down if you encourage people to invest in oil and gas
Yeah.
projects, companies, greenlit some projects. That would send signals to the market that you're going to be favorable to them. All investors wouldn't be okay with it,
Yeah.
but some would.
I mean, look at the recount last week. It went up by a total of 4. Oil prices in the US are over 80 degrees. Sorry, I said degrees. Over $80 a barrel and the rig count went up by 4
Yeah, right.
total. I think they added like 5, but they took one away. I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's so the U.S. is, as it stands right now, going into the last. We're at the last of 2021. This is November 8th, so we've got a little less than 2 months before the end of the year, and so you got Q1 of 2022 coming, and so you you're not going to see a ton of rigs come on the market, even if people wanted to by the end of this year, and so that's just not happening. So yeah, so you have to do something to get the demand to slow down, or OPEC will have to increase. Otherwise, the prices are
Sorry.
going to continue to rise. What?
Sorry, my computer started playing
Oh, I
something.
did. I did.
Oh,
Sure.
I don't know if it came through.
Yeah.
Here's just a fun fact. Okay, which state do you think has the lowest gasoline tax in the nation?
Wait, is this a trick question? Because it feels like California is the answer, but it's
No,
not.
it's definitely not
Like that would be
California.
ironic. California has the lowest, and yet they have the highest gas prices. No,
Yeah.
lowest. I'm going to say Idaho.
Uh, no, it's Alaska.
Alaska. Ooh.
Yeah, because theirs is like 9 cents, and
Mhm.
everybody else is. I think most people have somewhere around like 20 cents.
Mhm.
Arizona has only 19. But yeah, Alaska.
So think
Interesting.
about
I
that.
mean, that makes sense. They produce a lot of like
Right.
oil.
But so you got a federal tax of 18 cents a gallon on gasoline, and if you're in Arizona, you had, what you said, 20 cents, we'll call it. So 38 cents a gallon. 38 cents a gallon is taxes, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, here we go. The gas, yeah. So, there's definitely room there in terms of taxes if you want to give relief to the people. Um, I don't know how. Like, do you have to pass that through Congress, or can you just like tell the IRS or whoever it is, just like suspend it, put a moratorium on it. But maybe we should also talk at the same time because you were mentioning about encouraging investment and pipelines and things. Maybe we should talk about news that apparently news that the Biden administration is considering shutting down another pipeline.
yes.
Although I just heard like the opposite. So like literally like 5 minutes before I came on, I like think I just heard that actually they're not considering shutting down this pipeline. They're considering how to expand it. So I think there's I don't know. There's definitely a lot of confusion there, but it's an interesting article because this issue has been going on a lot in Michigan. There's a pipeline called Line 5, which is
Mhm.
creative name for a pipeline that goes between basically it connects Canada and the US. And it's a really important pipeline both for crude oil and products. And it goes both ways. And, it's I would say it's really, really important. And Enbridge, which is a Canadian company that owns it, wants to expand it and they want to build like another one, basically, or a new one. And Michigan has been like fighting this tooth and nail to the point where Canada was like, we're invoking this 1920s treaty, which says that you just can't shut down pipeline because they wanted to shut down the pipeline. So, so this article says, so this is interesting. So the only article I could find was from Fox News, which I don't love because but like they're like at least writing about this stuff and a lot of other places weren't. And he says that the Biden administration is reportedly weighing the potential market consequences of shutting down an oil pipeline in Michigan. So yeah, so they've yet to decide what to do with Line 5. Officials are gathering information only to present a clear picture of the situation. Seems like it's a little late. Like this has been going on for a while. Line 5 is part of a network that moves crude oil and other petroleum products from Western Canada, transports a lot. Yes, we know. So, basically, they're saying that, like, uh, I don't know. So it actually doesn't seem like they're considering shutting it down. It seems like they're not considering. They're considering how to like expand it or whatnot. But that's if they do at least support Michigan in its attempt to shut it down, that would be another huge blow for the U.S. energy system and also for energy in North America in general. The best thing obviously would be to support the pipeline and support expanding the pipeline because we've said it a million times here, but pipelines are the best way to transport this stuff.
Well, it's kinda like I was saying earlier about the OPEC messaging and the Biden messaging. Unless the media really lays the hammer to Biden for the impacts of these decisions, then they kinda get a free pass on it, right?
Oh, I think they do, but I do think that they're not necessarily going to. I think when consumers start really feeling the pinch, they're gonna feel it because like uh, reporters are actually asking them about this stuff. I don't think that they're being as intense, obviously, as during the Trump administration, but they do need to be called to the task over like, what are you doing? Because prices are going up, you're laughing about it, and you're just keep blaming OPEC, blaming OPEC. What are you gonna do? And it just looks worse and worse and worse. Plus, when you get into winter, there's supposed to be like a cold snap or whatever hitting the Midwest soon. People are going to be cold. I think we have enough energy, but the issue is like, how are people supposed to afford it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Imagine it adds like your bill could go up $100 a month or $300. Like people in this country cannot afford that. And by people, I don't mean the 1% or whatever.
Yeah, you mean the average listener
Yeah,
to this podcast. Just the average folks.
people
Yeah, yeah.
like
The vast majority of us. Yes, yes. No, Elon might can after he sold his stock. Did he sell his stock, by the way? Did that happen?
yeah, I don't know. There's all the whole thing about how it was really like he has a big tax bill and that's why he was selling his stock. I was confused.
Remind me to send you.
He's
I
gonna
don't know.
have to pay taxes though if he sells his stock. So
Right, I think that's what he was. I gotta. right when we get offline, I see something. I saw a guy with an interesting thread on Twitter about how these guys avoid taxes and they take out loans against their stock and stuff like that. They don't.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, oh wow, okay, that's quite interesting. So they don't ever take a salary.
Yeah.
They take out these loans against their stock.
So they basically they don't take a salary, so they don't have to pay income tax. And then they don't sell their stock, so they
Mhm.
don't have to pay capital gains, and then they take out these so that seems I don't know, that just like rubs me the wrong way. Maybe I just have like weird ideas about like that, like you don't want to like take more debt, but it makes sense if especially if interest rates are so low. But like it just gives me the heebie jeebies. I don't know. Maybe I'm old school.
Well, they got so much money, it probably doesn't matter.
That's true. That's the thing, like, they don't notice it, like, that's the thing. Their electricity bill goes up $500 and their heating
Mhm.
bill goes up $200 this winter, they will never notice it,
Right.
whereas that like, other people will be like, "Oh, crap.
But just as
Like,
an
I can't
aside,
afford it."
we talk about rising costs, lowering taxes on gasoline. If they are able to take out a loan that allows them not to pay taxes because you'll pay taxes on loans, which is true, then all the talk of the new taxes getting the 1%, you won't get them because they're taking out loans to fund their salaries. They're not actually.
Yeah.
So it just I found that interesting. But anyways, okay, let's go to our favorite folks over in Russia.
Oh,
Russia
yeah.
keeps grip on Europe's gas market despite Putin's pledge.
Who
I,
could have
I
seen
can't,
that one coming?
yeah, I can't imagine Putin was a liar. Surely not, right?
What was it? There was, like, that famous line from, like, Bush, he thought he could, like, work with Putin, and then he, like, looked into his eyes and,
He
like,
saw
knew.
this.
Yeah.
He saw. God, I
What
can't
was
remember
that
what it was,
line?
but I was at a deal one time with was it Gates' Secretary of Defense or whatever, and
Yeah.
Gates quoted that thing about Bush. He goes, President Bush said this. I looked into his eyes and I saw a stone cold killer.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, come on. So, well, remember there was this, like, conference and Putin was like, "No, we're increasing the flows to the pipeline." And then, like, prices went down.
Mhm.
Natural gas prices in Europe went down. And I was like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't jump. Like just because like Putin says we're do this, like don't jump yet because
Right.
Putin is not the most trustworthy guy. Yeah, of late they've really been keeping their promises to OPEC, but that doesn't mean that they have in the past, and it certainly doesn't mean you can trust them now. So apparently he promised more natural gas starting on Monday. So far, no signs. German gas orders via a key Russian pipeline signaled a very small increase in shipments on Monday. No extra capacity to send additional supplies to Europe was booked in auctions on Sunday. So it doesn't appear that more is coming. Russia has been keeping supplies capped. I mean, like at this point, you've got to say like it must be. I mean, think about how much money the Russians could be making if they were selling more gas.
Right.
So it's got to be pressure for Nord Stream 2, right? I mean,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, as far as or there's something else at play. Who knows with the Russians and
yeah.
what they're doing. But it is again, it's just kind of this weird narrative. It's like, okay, well, you want to buy from Putin? I've said it 100 times. Go ahead, buy from Putin. But this is part of what you had to deal with, right? Which is these kind of games, this kind of um, remember last year the story. I think it was last year about the crude oil had the toxins in it or something.
Oh, it was contaminated. Oh,
Contaminated, right?
yeah, with what was it? With something,
Yeah.
and they oh, yeah, and they, like, hauled some people away for it too.
Mhm, mhm,
That
mhm.
was exciting. Oh, I
Right.
forgot about that.
So there's
That's
there's there's always something with the Russians, right? And so,
it would be boring without them.
no, it's political theaters, if nothing else. So thank you, Europeans, for keeping us entertained with your Russia stories. So,
Yes.
okay, we have a very well written, smart, dare I
Ooh.
say, elegant piece from Barron's.
Why,
U.S. energy
thank you.
prices are breaking a historic pattern. The results could be severe. By Dr. Alan
Dun-dun-dun.
Wald.
Did not write the headline. That's the big thing. You gotta remember, like, op-ed writers do not write their own headlines. Sometimes the editors will ask you what you think of the headline. You're lucky if you get that. Not that
Well,
there's anything wrong with this headline. I think it's a great headline.
mhm.
Awesome headline. Yeah, so this is a piece from me. This is an opinion piece in Barron's. So basically, there's a really cool chart, and Barron's did
Mhm.
a really good job with this because when I did it on my computer, it didn't look so cool. But it basically shows you using energy prices from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is a very interesting site full of interesting information that is not nearly as well presented as EIA data. Like you can't just like download the spreadsheet in an effective way. You have to, you know,
Right,
so
it's so weird, isn't
EIA
it? Yeah.
beats Bureau of Labor Statistics. Anyway, one of the interesting things that they have is they show historic energy prices. And if you look at the way that energy prices have kind of the patterns of energy prices over the years, you can see that basically every summer prices go up and every winter they go down.
Mhm.
And yes, there are times like if you look at like 2010, there was like a big drop, and certain times like in 2008, there was a little bit of a shift, but they generally follow this basic pattern until 2020. And if you look at what happened in 2020, you can see in July prices went up as usual. And then they went down in October. And then instead of continuing to go down, they went up and then they just kept going up. So from February, up in 2021, they're all going up and up. And the latest data we have is from September. We don't have the August, I mean, the October data. We don't get that until like midway through November. So prices are basically breaking this historic pattern and continuing to rise, and that's a huge, potentially a huge dislocation in the energy market. And these are like prices per like kilowatt hour,
Mhm.
and so I attribute that basically to the shift to much more natural gas being used in our country. So if you look at how many gigawatt hours of power we're getting from natural gas now than we were before, we're getting 113% more electricity from natural gas now than we were in 2020 than we were in 2005. And that's a huge amount. And that's actually one of the big reasons why our emissions have dropped so much, because we got rid of, basically, we did that at the expense of coal. So coal dropped a lot, not quite as much. But the big thing is natural gas use increased a huge amount. Basically, like nuclear stayed the same essentially, coal dropped a lot. Um, Total power generation didn't rise that much. We're only talking an increase of about 3% rise in total power generation. um, Nuclear and hydropower barely grew. Solar power, geothermal, basically negligible. Wind power did grow, actually. Not anywhere near as much as natural gas, but wind power did show a good deal of growth. But basically, we are so much more reliant on natural gas now than we were. So obviously, the pricing and the availability of that is going to affect our electricity prices. So I don't think we're in a situation like, say, Europe, where there's concern about supply. I think we will have enough, supply. It's just more expensive. And the question is, are we going to return to our more normal patterns, or is this a new normal where prices are just going to be, we're not going to see the seasonal shift where the prices go up in the summer and down in the winter? We going to have higher prices all over? And so and then at the end of the piece, I just talk about a historical issue that from 1902, where most Americans heated their homes and buildings from anthracite coal, which was mostly produced in Pennsylvania by mines that were owned by the railroads. And in the spring of 1902, the miners went on strike. And they continued to strike all summer. And winter was approaching, and the president then was Theodore Roosevelt. I remember him. Um, what did he say? Speak softly, but carry a big stick.
That's him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's him.
that was them. Oh,
Or
that's pretty good.
walk
And
softly, speak softly, I can't remember about that, yeah.
I actually have a postcard from his from museum, from his house. It's like covered up at the moment, so I can't read it, but I do believe it says, "Speak softly and carry a big stick. You will go far." So
Mm.
anyway, um, well, in this case, he said he was basically like, a coal famine in the winter is an ugly thing, and will have terrible suffering and grave disaster. People will freeze. So first, he threatened to nationalize the coal mines. But then he didn't follow through on that, but he basically then came through and created this commission and that brokered agreement to end the strike. He got both sides to agree to accept the whatever the commission came up with, and they ended up ending the strike in October. And so Americans did not freeze that winter. So I'm not saying we're in a situation like that, because I don't think Americans will freeze, but some Americans may turn may choose, it's not, they're not going to freeze because of lack of availability of electricity. It's the cost that could be the determining factor. And I would certainly, I didn't make a political argument in this, but I would argue that this is something that demands attention now in November before things get worse, and something better than laughing about it and just saying, oh well, you're going to see higher prices, because that's all it seems like. I think that's what the energy secretary said on TV. So it's not helpful. You gotta. What are you gonna do?
They're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter. Unfortunately, they're not going to do anything. Okay. Okay, so we have two stories here from the Global Times, and I should preface this by saying
Yeah. What do you think of this?
the Global Times is state-run media.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean that obviously everything's wrong, but it is state-run media, and so it's you gotta kind of
Yeah, I
know.
was more. I was more put because I wanted to discuss what you thought about what was happening in China and how that factors into the global energy issues as opposed to
No, no, no.
yeah.
No,
So
it's great to talk about these. Like the China
yeah,
watchers, they'll take these stories and they'll take another story and they'll kind of compare them with who's right. So it's great to talk
yeah.
about. But for the listeners who just don't know, when you read the Global Times, you have to be aware that it is like imagine if Trump had his own news outlet or Biden had his own news outlet. Like this
What
is
do you mean they don't?
well, okay. Officially had their own news.
Sorry. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I generally don't believe that, but like,
Uh,
it,
yes, yes. It's hard to deny. Okay, so the first story is cold wave sweeps 90% of regions across China, and according to this, Beijing got its first major winter snowfall 23 days earlier than the usual date. Now, we talked earlier. You mentioned places getting a cold snap. Um, Matt, we've seen in the past 18 months or so, China having brownouts because they would leave coal in the ports. You talk about rising prices. One economy that can't afford them is China. So an early and long set cold winter could really hurt the Chinese economy.
oh yeah,
And
completely. And it's yeah,
I would say the other thing is that we talk about China. If you go back to them a year ago, they were the ones buying up all the oil for the while the prices were low. So I don't know how that turns over over a long cold winter, but surely they're going to have to deploy that, right?
yeah. Did you see the picture on the Global Times article about the coal? Their daily coal output hits annual
Yes,
high.
yes, that was my
That's
next. Yeah,
yeah. That is some image.
it's a lot of coal.
It's a lot of coal. Yeah. Um. Yeah, it's interesting because I this news I think came out last week, or at least I
Mhm.
saw it last week, and
During
it was
COP
interesting
26.
because yeah, it came out at exactly the same time as the 26 nations or whatever were announcing their
Mhm.
commitment to like decoalify. That's not a word. To get rid of get
No, that's a
to
great word.
decrease
I like that.
coalify.
Dequalify.
Decoalify. It sounds like doing something with soda.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, to dequalify. And I actually wrote a little, like a quick piece about this for the Atlanta Council has this like rapid response blog thing to COP26. So I contributed. They send emails every day asking people to contribute. So I contributed, and I said, this promise comes out, and at the exact same time, we're seeing coal use increase in China, India, and the United States. And what's the point? None of these countries signed on to this so-called
Mhm.
like thing to reduce coal. So what's the point? China's coal output is going to be up to like 12 million tons. By the way, is it tons tons or tons tonnes? Is one a British spelling? I
I
do
think it's a
not
British
know.
thing. So, okay, here'd be a question for you though. If you read this piece, it says China's daily coal output continued to rise, hitting 11.88 million tons on Thursday, the highest level in recent years. Since the start of November, China's average daily coal output has reached 11.53 million tons, up 800,000 tons from early October. Based on the current coal production, China's daily output is expected to break above 12 million tons in the near future. Okay, and it goes on to say, meanwhile, coal inventory plants have 112 million tons on Wednesday, enough to sustain national usage for 20 days.
How
And
many
so I
days?
think 20,
That's 20 days.
right. And then
Wow.
the next paragraph says, generally speaking, coal stockpiles for 20 days of usage is a landmark indicator, meaning power plants are not in a shortage of coal as their inventories have clawed back to normal levels. So I think that this might be about
Mm.
I don't know, but I'm wondering how much this is about them trying to say that they have coal, they're not concerned about a shortage, like that kind of propaganda. Maybe not, but that seems to be what they're driving at there.
So China's like making this big announcement, and we're all like
We're
taking
good.
it the wrong way. They're basically like, "Hey guys, simmer down.
Yeah,
Your lights aren't going to go off."
maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm curious. We'll see what
Hmm.
happens. Um, but I found it interesting that they're touting that more than anything else. But maybe not. I don't know. What do you think? It's a pushback on the COP26 stuff, huh?
I don't think it's a pushback for the COP26. I think it's a we don't give a shit. Sorry, excuse me, language for our young listeners. No, I just think it's. I don't really think it. I don't. I think China would have done this regardless of whether COP26 was going on or not. I just think that that it's like I don't think it was done deliberately. I think it was just a coincidence, but it's an important thing to consider if you're like looking at COP and being like these promises, like this is so historic, this is such a big important landmark, and that's I don't know. Anyway, we have some
Yeah.
listener comments. So
Yeah. So yeah, remember Trump used to say clean coal. Yes, I do. I do quite
clean
like that.
coal.
And
I still
someone
haven't figured out how that works. Do you use palm olive to like or do you need bleach?
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious as we go through. So you have the 2 articles. One's talking about, and I don't know the order because I closed the other one out, the order of those 2 pieces, but one's talking about, how cold it is there early, and the next one's talking about, um
One was November 6th and the other was November 7th.
okay, so the cold's the 6th then. So I wonder if that's
Yeah.
anticipation of the cold winter that they're getting ready to have the next day. And so they're kind of
Yeah.
prepping people to say, "Oh, no,
These
it's not."
pictures. Wow.
Yeah. It's not gonna we have power, don't worry, so I don't know, that would be
Yeah.
my first guess, just a guess here. Okay, we have time no, we have time quickly for one more, I guess. EPA, unveils a
Sure.
plan on controls of greenhouse gases, VOCs from oil and gas upstream. Oh, well, more regulation because
Yeah.
that's what we need. So a
Exactly.
577-page proposal. 577 pages. I can promise you no one of substance has read that whole thing.
Yeah. So yeah, so this came out again. I'm sure it was timed to come out right at the same time as some like methane thing at COP came out
Mhm,
earlier.
mhm,
But
mhm.
I mean it's basically like kicking oil production producers when they're down, right? And like I know this idea, like, okay, capture the methane, capture the natural gas, put it into the system, that's good and everything, but like you're hindering this like who's doing any drilling right now? Small companies, like tiny
Right,
companies. Didn't we hear like a company that had like they had like 6 people and like 2 wells or something? But they're the ones who are doing the expansion and doing the drilling, and then you're gonna hit them with these like basically saying you have to like buy drones and thermal cameras to or expensive technology to monitor your methane output. And that's there you go. More expenses. I mean, I do think that methane output, like whatever, venting methane into the atmosphere is not good. I agree. But is this really the best time for these rules? They're just gonna kick the little companies who are the ones actually expanding.
of course it is. The economy's going great. Inflation's transitory. The Fed's getting ready to allegedly raise interest rates. What could go wrong?
Really?
That's what I heard. So we'll see next year, not this year. I think Q1 is what I heard the other day.
Q1 2022?
Yeah, yeah.
That'll send the market down.
Oh, yeah, right in time for midterms. So we'll see if that happens or not. Okay, Dr. Wald, where will you be this week?
Where will it be this week? Oh, good question. Oh, I am in an article on I think it's called like EE News or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's a really neat article that is looking at Saudi Arabia's net zero promises, and so it does a really good deep dive into that. And I will also be on investing.com,
Okay.
where I think I'll be writing about the methane rules.
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
Maybe.
Okay. Inside the
No,
war
actually,
room.
sorry. I wrote about the methane rules last week. I think I will be writing about our energy secretary
There
this
you
week.
go.
Sorry.
Laughing in her green jacket, which I have no comment on. None
There you
whatsoever.
go.
Dr. Wald has comments on them. Okay.
Yes.
Inside the war room, I have a couple in the can. I'm not sure which one I'm going to release this week, but either one on China or one on China and Russia, or I can't remember my other one. I have a third one somewhere. Anyways,
Ooh,
so be
China
excited.
and Russia
Yeah,
both
yeah, yeah.
making
So
news.
I had on Friedman from Harvard. Come on. He's got the book on Soviet Russia, and then he's got a new one on socialism in the third world. So coming out. And so
Oh, Jeremy.
yes, yes,
Jeremy Friedman.
yes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I know Jeremy. So
yeah,
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 I actually know him personally. Oh, that's awesome. Everyone should listen to that. Jeremy is like he's got some really interesting ideas. Really like interesting person. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. You
So
guys should definitely listen to those podcasts.
so
It's
I
gonna be
don't
really good.
yeah, I have to look and see. He's either like this week or next couple weeks, but I'll let you know for sure when he comes out. But anyways, so I have a podcast on this other one that I've recorded. I can't remember which one it is. Put my notes on here. Come out this week, so be sure to check that out. With that, Dr. Wald, we'll be back next week, right? Yeah, we're back next week.
No,
No,
no, I
no,
don't
we're off
think.
next week.
Well, we might be.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Okay, so let's see here.
Yeah.
You might be here next week.
Yeah, and then
So
next week we have
we have a
and then
guest,
the week after that we're having a guest,
the 22nd.
the one I mentioned who's going to talk
That's
about
right.
his ideas about OPEC.
So we'll be here the 22nd for sure. I'm not sure what we're doing Thanksgiving week, so but the 22nd for sure,
Yeah,
and then the
well,
6th, and then we'll figure everything out in between. So we'll let you know on
yeah.
the 26th. I mean the 22nd. We might be here the 15th. Listen, download the podcast and you'll know when we're here. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. With that being said, listeners, we'll talk to you next week or the week after.